My life be like, yeah. My life be like.
Glad we could connect. This is going to be fun.
This is going to be fun. Stu, it's
Yeah.
so good to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
We'll get through some of that background first, and then we'll get to the exit, and then we'll get into like what's one of the hardest things you've implemented that has like the biggest success or the biggest impact in your organization. And that's what I'd really like to talk about. And it sounded like that's something you also are kind of excited to talk about also.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Stu Draper, thank you so much for joining us on the Fluence podcast. We're putting this podcast together because we're trying to put peers in the same room. Really, executives that are running companies that are doing 20 million plus per year. This is the place for them to be able to come and be able to talk about things that they're dealing with because there's other peers that are dealing with the same things. And so we're going to deep dive a little, or do a deep dive a little bit into what you've done. And we're really excited for you to be able to join us for the Fluence session that's going to be coming up here soon, for us to be able to have you in the room with our members and be able to discuss a little bit more. So Stu Draper, thank you so much for being here.
So
Yeah,
glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
appreciative for your consent to join us and to come present to our group. I've known Stu more than 10 years, I think, right? When did
Oh,
you
yeah.
sell Get Found First? It was shortly after that that you joined the group.
I would have definitely been a part of your group before I sold Get Found
Oh,
First, which
oh,
was
okay. So it was when you still had it. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
way more than 10 years ago, probably 2012 or so. Maybe even 2011. But yeah, I started Get Found First, my first business in 2000, very end of 2008. I got my first unpaid customer and then made my first dollar in 2009. And actually, the same kind of thing happened with my second business, Stukent. I had my first non-paying customer in 2013 and made my first dollar in January of 2014.
Oh, cool. Okay. So yeah, it's been over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got to know you, I couldn't remember. I knew it was close to the transition. You might have joined us. We've been going for probably a year at least with that first group that we built. And then I think you jumped in. Um, it was really fun. I was able to twist his arm and he came with us, came with me to go, took him on this. He's like, why is this strange bald guy taking me to Afton? Uh, but
I'll
it was
never
a fun
forget that
event.
fun trip to Afton. We went and fished and had a great time with Randy Garn and I think at the time they called themselves the Hero Club or
Yeah,
Bonds
Hero Partners
Bronze
or something
Buffalo,
like
right?
that, Bronze
Yeah.
Buffalo. Yeah, yeah. And that's where you first met Scott Schwab and maybe a few others. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's neat to actually have you bring that up because Randy Garn has been a great influence on my life, mostly from afar, and Scott Schwab as well. And those connections that I made way back when at those early retreats were definitely important parts of my early stage growth as a founder.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this about Stu. Amazing energy, huge heart, is a big giver, uh, just has a very contagious smile that everybody that gets to know Stu loves Stu. And I don't know that you have very many enemies. I mean, maybe those people that you play against in baseball, but other than that, I don't know that you have very many enemies. So I'm glad to call you friend. Super excited to hear your wisdom and excited for you to share that with our audience today.
Yeah, well, Jordan, we are now fast friends. If you're a friend of John's, you're a friend of mine. So glad to be
Yeah,
together.
same. Yeah, I super appreciate that, Stu. That's awesome. Excited to get to know you more, and excited to kind of go through. I'm excited to get to know you on the personal level. Some of what we're going to go through today is on some of the professional and some of the things that you're kind of putting out there. Um, One thing, as I was just kind of looking at like on your LinkedIn, our group, what we're looking for is not necessarily just successful people. We're looking for successful people that also have very specific qualities. And when I looked at your headline that you have on LinkedIn, I was like, this is a giver. This is somebody that has an abundance mindset and is looking outward rather than inward. And It says you're on a mission to actually create 1,000 millionaires. I'm curious about that. I want to
Yes.
hear about that.
Yeah. I heard Jeff Bezos once be critical of Forbes and the Forbes list. Someone in the media was asking him about how he felt about being where he was on the Forbes list. And he goes, the Forbes list is dumb, really, because it's measuring just my wealth, not the wealth of all the other millionaires because of the business that I've started. And like that's where we should really measure wealth. That like hit me different. It's something I've never forgotten. And I could relate a little bit because the original angels in Stukent, if you put in $25,000 in 2014 in Stukent, in 2021, you got like just shy of $1 million for just a $25,000 investment. And so it was really exciting to be able to give everyone the news that we had done a deal with a private equity group and that they were cutting checks to all of our original investors. 7 years later, they were having that kind of a payday. And for those early founding team members that came along for the ride, that got stock options and took a big bet on me and on the idea with me, they also had really nice paydays. And so I'm very proud of what I've done and for the wealth that I've built, but I'm very motivated to go and find ways to find who I was 12, 14 years ago and take them on trips to Afton, if, so to speak, like John did for me. And I'm hopeful that there's multiple founders out there that are able to track me down and find me, because there's a saying, it says something like, you're best suited to help the person you were 10 years ago. And I wish I could grab every founder that's where I was 10 years ago and be like, okay, just hear me out for a minute. Let's turn a decade into a day. Let me just barf out everything I can to help you succeed, because watch them for the missteps that I made and don't make them, and it doesn't work exactly like that, but you can definitely find great people, bring them around you, and they can make a difference for your whole future career and the success of your business. So find those people that can be there for you. It was a big piece of advice I'd share with a founder.
That's awesome.
Love that, Stu.
Yeah, same.
And then let me elaborate a little bit more on that. So also for you as a business owner, if you're constantly thinking about how your investors are going to earn well off of your work and your success, you will win and they will win. I think often we want to just be like, hey, if the investor wins or not, that's a risk they took. That's the gamble they took. And that's not the right mindset. I think if you take investor money, it's like hell or high water. I will die on the hill trying to find a way to get them a win and a return on their investment. So,
yeah, love that.
That speaks volumes of outward mindset and team player and giver mentality. Like, I just love exactly what you just said, Stu. That's so good.
Yeah, and 10 years ago, it sounds like that's when you started Stukent. Was 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's actually coming up on 12 years now. Mm-hmm.
Let's go back a little bit further. What's the first thing that you did? It looks, what I found, I don't know if that is even, was it the Christmas light guys? Was that the first venture that you did?
So back in college, I did the Christmas light guys with my buddy, and I learned a few things fast about entrepreneurship and business, and that is that the rubber meets the road at deals, at phone calls and deals. And if you can prove to yourself you can make that happen, it's really addictive, and you want to go get more of that. And it makes figuring out the legal crap, the accounting crap, I call them crap because that's just not my expertise. It's not my forte. It's not what I love and enjoy. It's an important part of business. As a business leader who's going to go and scale, you cannot afford to not have that. But going and getting that first deal, going and proving that there are buyers, there is a product market fit, that matters so much more upfront than the
Yeah.
legal and accounting. You'll get that figured out, and you have to,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't matter as much as getting going.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Awesome. Between that and starting Stukent, what do you think were some pivotal like milestones that you're like, this was super important from there to actually the company that you built that you've had this much success with?
Oh man, I learned some good lessons the hard way. I tried my friend that did the Christmas lights with me. He said, "I'm going to go sell pest control, and I'm going to go to like I don't know Indiana or something. Some boring flyover state is how I thought about it." And um, I was going to go sell alarms in Southern California. And I thought I was a genius for picking the more fun place and the higher ticket item. I put my eggs in that basket, and he came home with a lot more money than I did from that. And the business that I chose to hitch up to ran out of funding and didn't pay anyone their back end checks at the end of the summer. So a third of my income that I could have received, I didn't even get. And so I learned some hard lessons from that. I also tried doing used car sales while I was in college, and man, one, it was hard, but two, I learned some valuable lessons. They fired me after 2 months, and then they closed their doors a month after that. And again, I had picked the wrong business to go and work with.
Yeah.
And then last job, the last real painful job I had before I just became my own boss and started my own business was I sold property management software for a company called Yellowstone Hotel Systems. And the founder, bless his heart, he raised a bunch of money and he did everything he could to make the business go. And I actually sold that software really well. We also sold digital marketing services to locally owned hotels, mom and pop shops. And I was like so happy that like I'd stunk at the alarm door-to-door sales. I had stunk at used car sales. And then I'm like actually doing well at property management software sales. And then '08 happens, and anyone that was willing to extend more investment into this startup pulled out. And they pulled us all in a room on a Friday, right around Christmas, right after a really fun Christmas party, actually, and said, "We don't have any, the investor money didn't come through, and we have no way to hit payroll today. So you can all go home." And I went home to my wife for a third time to say, "I'm sorry, things haven't worked out." And now we've got baby number 2 on the way. And my wife's going like, "Who did I marry? He cannot figure things out here." And man, I just want to find that kid and tell him, keep going. It's all gonna work out. And John said I have a big heart. It leads to leaky eye syndrome at times. So forgive me for getting a little passionate there. But man, I just kept going. My brother-in-law was a dentist in Salem, Oregon, and he was letting me do his Google ads for free so I could get more experience doing it. And that was when I got laid off. So rather than look for a fourth job I could fail at or have a boss fail me or a business fail me, I just went and started getfoundfirst.com and started doing Google ads for dentists. And I grew that business and ended up selling it in 2015. And I learned a lot about partnerships from that disaster with partnerships. Like those partnerships for me and service-based business for me was not the right move. And for the long run, I'm so glad I got out of that and into the ed tech world with Stukent, which has been my biggest home run yet.
Yeah. Yeah, Rad. Part of the reason I kind of wanted to go through some of that backstory, those that are listening to the Fluence podcast are those that have been through similar trenches and probably are to a point, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they're getting to that point or have been for a while, the peak of that, which is altruism, which is looking back and saying, hey, how can I start to kind of give back and do those types of things? And so some of the conversations we have are around, hey, these are things that I'm doing to find that person that I was 10, 15 years ago. There's also other conversations around like, hey, I'm now to this certain point, which are some other things that you have been through. And so let's maybe shift a little bit more into a little bit more of kind of the world where a lot of our listeners are, which is they're running successful businesses or have exited large businesses, kind of like Stukent. So maybe kind of talk instead of through kind of the early years of Stukent, which I would love to have like a separate conversation around that. And I think that, I mean, those are things that we've all kind of been through and kind of built through. But let's talk a little bit more towards kind of a little bit later stage. Once you were starting to be like, man, this is like really going, like, when did you feel like, man, okay, this is actually, because I think we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome. Uh, I'm sure you've had this opportunity where you're like, man, if you can imagine we're to this point, then you get to that point and you're like, this is not what I thought. Like, once I'm to this next point, I feel like I've made it. What did that kind of journey look like? And then what did it look like once you actually did kind of sell to PE? And what did the exit kind of look like?
Yeah. Well, that'll keep me going for a while. That's a lot to cover, Jordan. I appreciate that.
Well, let's have another conversation around all that then. Let's maybe talk just a little bit around kind of that end of it. And then let's go right into kind of what we kind of want to talk about. Some of the things you actually implemented within the organization that had the biggest impact or you had the biggest success with. But let's touch a little
Yeah.
bit on kind of let's, because I feel like we could talk for 3 hours and still hit like
Yeah.
the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about over a decade worth of work, right? So there's all sorts of things to learn and discuss. But if I'm understanding you right, you're like, hey, let's go and talk about kind of after you've felt like you've made it, you've kind of scaled, and you're getting ready to exit and things like that. I'll go there first, and then we can decide where to go next. But
Yeah.
I remember having kind of felt like I'd made it. We had signed up now like 300 or 400 universities. We still needed to raise more money. We weren't cash flow positive yet, but we had really proven that in the long run, this was going to work because our retention was pretty good after that many years of signing up schools, and the schools were very happy. And we were still the only player in the game with a first in the world product, closing like over 50% of every demo. I felt like we'd made it. And I'm walking through a bookstore after a conference, and I see I'm walking through the airport by a bookstore, and there's a blue book with white letters on it that says "Walk Away Wealthy." And it caught my attention, and I turned and I went over to the bookstore, grabbed the book off the shelf, and just opened it up and went, it talks about selling a business. I hadn't really thought that deeply about the idea of selling the business. I knew that I had to find a way to get investors their money back, but I had always told them up front, like, my goal is to build a profitable business where someone might want to buy it because it's profitable, but it's so profitable that you guys can start to get dividends. Well, after 3 or 4 years, it was really apparent that was still going to be a ways off. And so I needed to think about how to get a return for these investors. When you hit the Inc. 5000 list, by the way, Stukent has now been on that list 8 times. Get Found First has been on it twice, and they're both still going and growing. It's really fun to cheer them from the sidelines now. But I lost my train of thought there. I was going to say that the Inc. 5000 list leads to acquirers coming to you. You start getting people that want to buy your business. And as I was thumbing through Walk Away Wealthy on the plane, it talked about the idea of not selling when someone calls, but selling when you choose to sell your business using an investment banker. And honestly, I'd been through business school and I didn't really understand investment banking or what it was. I had a 4-year degree and I still didn't really get that. I think it's one of those things where it's like, it was probably in the book I read. I probably passed something on a test with it, but it was far enough away from my first roles out of college that I didn't really know it or understand the world. And so the way I explain it, an investment banker now to someone is, look, this is real estate and agents, but for business owners. And I have learned so much now about the world of investment banking and the power of choosing the right investment banker. So many things for all of us kind of happen. We learn by happenstance, and we get lucky along the way. No one does it all right and perfectly planned as they originally set out. But I had one of those calls where it wasn't a VC, it wasn't a private equity group, it was an investment banker. And this guy's like, I would love to do a pro bono analysis of your business. He goes, think of it like a real estate agent that shows you the comps, how much your business is worth. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not serious about selling. And so I don't want to lead you along, but if you're interested and willing, I'll happily let you do a pro bono analysis of our business. And this guy was with a company called Vista Point Advisors. And one of the things he said that really stood out to me, besides that he had pitched for USC baseball, and I thought that was cool. He goes, I have represented multiple education technology businesses that have sold to your potential strategic buyers and to private equity groups that like to buy education technology businesses. And so when I do this analysis for you, I'm going to actually give you the numbers of other education technology businesses like yours that have sold. And his analysis gave me example after example of businesses, X, Y, and Z, never with the real names, that have sold to the actual names of the acquirers. And he would say, this business, so we told them before we did the deal that we would help them sell for somewhere between 4 times and 7 times top line. And they got 8 times top line when they actually sold. We told this company they would get between 6 and 9, and they actually got only 5 times. And I'll tell you why they didn't end up getting as good of a valuation as we thought they would. And he's like, and now you call them, you call those guys. Okay. Anyways, at the end of the day, we called these businesses, bro. I was blown away by how happy they were with their choice to use an investment banker. First round of interested buyers, we had 72 come to the table. Of those, 36 made a first offer. Of those, 24 made a second offer. Of those, we picked a final 12, and they had to make a third offer to us. So that led to management presentations and choosing a final 3 and a final bid. And we ended up going with the second highest bidder because of how much we had that investment banker had earned our trust, because he told us you can go with the highest bidder, but the highest bidder is probably going to beat you up in due diligence and come in with a lower price tag before the final payday.
Yeah.
The second guy, they've been around the whole time. They've been very engaged. They've asked them all the right questions. They will not change their price tag on you. So those paydays and opportunities that come along, they came along at 20 million, at 30 million, at 40 million. Having an investment banker took it from that to in like a year's time. So highly recommend that you work through an investment banker. I don't remember how much I paid them. All I know is it wasn't enough for how many additional millions I ended up making because I worked with them. So, yeah, I mean, the struggle that gets me to that payday and that great story and finish line, which, by the way, that's not the finish line. We doubled with me still as CEO after that payday. And then I've since stepped away to let a new CEO kind of take the reins and take it to the next level. But that's where we're at today.
Yeah. And so is the idea basically to get the second bite at the apple where you're pushing forward and you're going to have another event at some point? Is that kind of the plan?
Yes, absolutely. So every private equity group, what they try to do is buy a lot of your business, but not all of it, because they want you to believe in it and want to keep working with them and help them and talk good about how things are going. And the next payday comes when another acquirer comes along, and the private equity groups, they never do a deal without running a process and getting a lot of interested buyers. So,
and what do you think it has to be? Does it have to be 5x, 10x from when they originally bought it to before they'll sell to VC or somebody else?
Well, they have a lot of different criteria. One of the things I'm learning is that private equity buys in funds, and they need the fund to perform, not just one of their businesses, right? And so we're one of many businesses they own. And if another business struggles, then another business in the portfolio has to outperform to make up for the losses elsewhere. So that can impact timeline of when they want to have a second sales event. but they aim for like a 3 to 5 year time frame. It's probably more like a 3 to 7 year time frame per transaction that they do. Always depends on who the right suitors are that come along and how much they're willing to offer. Some of that still happens. The private equity groups still bigger ones come along and they know who the smaller ones are and who they want, what little smaller fish they like to eat. So, but the timing is always very different for each business, and the valuations are always very different. So, like most private equity groups are really happy with 3 times return is a really good return for them because their fund will average less than that. So they don't need home runs and grand slams. They need good base hits and singles and doubles. That kind of thing is kind of where private equity likes to live, and they're safer bets and they don't go crazy like VCs with the 5 and 10 or 100 times before they're excited. Right.
Yeah. 100%. Were there things that from that exit or that event when PE came in, we were asking like, what's one of the hardest things you implemented? Was there something prior to that you're like, man, it was absolutely this? And was there something different after that where you said all of a sudden you doubled from a $51 million company to larger than that? Like, were there bigger changes prior to the event or after the event, and what were they?
Oh man, before the event, we went just crazy fast in developing new simulations and new courseware that led to a lot of additional blue sky in the future. Right. We had planted, not only had we proven that the seeds we planted could grow and yield fruit, we had then, since then, before the first acquisition and deal with the private equity group, we had planted a lot of additional seeds that had already started to sprout, and it was clear the fruit would come. And not just clear to me, but clear to them as they did diligence. They're going to go talk to your customers. Like when you decide you're doing it now, because customers start going, what's going on? I just got a call from some group that says they want to just learn more about Stukent, and I don't know who they are, but I looked into who they are and they seem like a finance group, and like that stuff starts to happen. And so once you decide you're going to do it, you kind of have to do it. And for us, I don't remember your original question now, Jordan, because there goes my ADD again. But
well, it's because I'm asking you 5 questions at a time, and I shouldn't be doing that.
Well, and to refocus us and to make sure that we're sensitive on time, the question that I asked you that really lit you up when we talked last week was there were lots of different topics and a lot of things that you can teach us and our audience, Stu. So that was good. But when you hit on this concept of innovation, the question that I asked you was what was the hardest thing that you implemented that had the greatest success in your organization or that changed the trajectory for you? And you hinted at a couple of things. I don't know if you want to keep your powder dry and the story that you told me, but I love that. I was so excited for our people to be able to listen to what you had to share. And maybe you can hint around that or give us some background or whatever in preparation before you present to us here in 2 weeks. But
so like I mentioned, we had these new seeds we planted. We went and built the rocket ship for additional simulations that we could take to market. That was a big innovation for our business. No one was moving as fast as us in bringing new simulations to market for professors to use to teach their students. And there's a lot of innovations that come from going and doing R&D and paying engineers and building something new from scratch. But there's also a lot of other innovations that Stukent has that are outside of the traditional ways you think about innovating with your product. And this is what I would love to talk more about when we meet as a group with Fluence. Uber, they didn't invent the taxi, and they didn't invent Google Maps or Waze. What Uber did was the technology hit, 4G was fast enough. 5G obviously made it even better and an even better experience. But they married taxis and Google Maps and a payment processing experience. That's the innovation. It wasn't inventing taxis or inventing Google Maps. It was putting a bunch of things together that became the innovation. Another great example is Topgolf didn't invent the bowling alley or the concessions experience, nor did they invent the driving range, but they married those things and built some cool new technology for tracking the golf ball. And actually, they married a lot of that technology as well. A lot of that wasn't theirs, but there's innovation that happens there. You can find other ways to innovate with your branding. We didn't call our simulations simulations. We called them simternships, simulated internships. And we had contracts. Within our contracts, every publisher, traditional publisher, has contracts with their authors. We did some really unique and different things with our author contract agreements. And so in a longer conversation, I would love to dive deeper into different ways you can think about how to innovate with your business to be first in the world, even though a lot of the technologies and things about your product may feel like they're not first in the world. You can marry things together and make them first in the world.
And I apologize. I am familiar with what you did, but I didn't give you an opportunity to even explain what it is that was the product for Stukent. Maybe go through a little bit of that so that people can understand.
Sure. So Stukent is an education technology company that creates simulated internships that go hand in hand with a traditional textbook. The difference with our textbook is that it's not in print, it's only digital, and it's updated every year so it stays current. The slogan of Stukent is stay current. And it's a marriage of e-textbook and simulation. So the student gets to learn a skill in reading it about it, and then they get to actually practice doing the skill and prove their knowledge through simulation, not just through testing. And that's that's one of the ways that we married something. Textbooks existed, simulations existed. We brought them together as one combined thing that worked well for a course. And so, and they're always semester long, not to replace the professor, but to enhance the professor's experience. So that's what Stukent is and what we do. Yeah.
Well, and if anybody that's listening hasn't worked a lot in higher ed, I've actually worked a lot in that industry. It's interesting. They really like to have something and then it just like stays that way for a very long time. And so when you're saying it changes every year, that's not just like twice as good as something else. That's probably like 30 times better than something else. I'm assuming, like think about textbooks, and especially if you're talking about technology, something that's written today, like if you look at any of the other larger publishers, it's probably the same textbook that was written 15 years ago. And think about, I had an opportunity where I ran into somebody and I was seeing if I still had their number in my phone, and it didn't have the area code. That was like 15, 18 years ago. There's textbooks that are still written from that era that are still in circulation. And so anyways, I just want to kind of highlight what it is that you're doing. It's not just good and innovative. It's something that's actually really, really important. So anyways, just wanted to kind of go over.
I look forward to diving deeper into what those innovations are and how they impacted our business, not because I want to talk about me, but because in sharing the innovations we came up with, I think every business owner will have aha moments where they go, this is game changer information for me because now I can apply this for my business. So come and be a part of our next event. I look forward to speaking and sharing. So
yeah, fantastic. We only have a few minutes left, but well, I was going to say, could we get into it? I think let's dive in, and then like when we actually meet up with the Fluence community, and so we'd like to invite everybody to come join us. And man, I feel like I just want to have another 3 hours with you, Stu. I'll let John kind of finish up, but like what I would recommend, instead of like jumping into something and extending this podcast today another 30 minutes, let's put a pin in it. We'll be able to kind of talk about it in the Fluence session that is coming up. And then if anybody, it sounds like you would love to be able to talk with anybody that is looking to put those things into practice. And that could probably be individual conversations with you. It sounds like even 3 hours wouldn't be enough time to kind of go through all of it. So, um,
No, you're good. I'll just chime in and say thank you, Stu, for your time. We're so excited to hear from you. For those of our audience or guests that we don't have relationships with, know that you're going to be able to come and meet with other executive decision makers running companies doing over 20 million and be able to collaborate with them in this message that Stu's going to share with us about innovation, both in contracts and in branding and whatever else he talks on. And you'll be able to build relationships with these people in the short, less than 2 hour meeting that we have, but you'll also be able to find real value in the topic and in the discussion and walk away with some applicable information that you can go and put to work for yourself. So with that, Stu, is there anything else you want to wrap up with, or we can be done? I just give you the last word.
Yeah, if you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn very actively. You can just search up Stu Draper and learn more about my background before we hop on the live call. And I look forward to helping other founders. So if you have someone in mind that's looking to raise money or onto the scaling stage, I'm happy to connect. Love to
And
do
where
it.
do they find your Startups with Stu podcast?
Yeah, Startups with Stu .com is the website. So just
Okay,
search up Startups with Stu on Google and you'll find me.
yeah,
that's awesome. Okay.
fantastic. This is why I love what we're doing with Fluence is we're building a community of people like you, Stu. This is really fun. Um, we do virtual events monthly, and then we do get together a few times a year in person because our network is actually across the entire U.S. And so, anyways, thank you so much. We'll look forward to seeing you here in just about a week or so.
So
Yeah, let
glad
me
to be here. Thanks for having me, Jordan.